Revealed. How one woman's touching courage helped an incredible billionaire discover love beyond. Emily stood at the front of her classroom, the low hum of chatter filling the air as the storm clouds gathered outside, heavy and pregnant with rain. "Okay, everyone, let's focus," she called, her voice steady despite the knot twisting in her stomach. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders, an insistent reminder of her responsibilities as a single mother and caretaker for her ailing mother. Just this morning, they had barely scraped together enough for groceries, again facing the judgmental glances of those who couldn't fathom her struggle. "Is school going to get canceled?" whispered a desperate voice from the back, the kind of question that sent waves of anxiety washing over her. The thought of failing her students, of letting her own struggles interfere with their education, made her heart race. They needed consistency, stability. If she faltered, if her family's financial struggles seeped into her role as their teacher, what would that say about her? Every day she walked this thin rope, teetering precariously between the demands of motherhood, caregiving, and her unwavering commitment to her profession. "All right, pencils down," she instructed, breathing through the rising panic as the skies darkened. She had resolved to lead volunteer relief efforts for the school as the storm approached. Helping others had become her refuge, but the stakes felt different this time. She could not afford to falter. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With the storm looming outside, her thoughts spiraled. What if she failed? The school had barely enough resources as it was, and another setback might leave her students in the dark, literally and metaphorically. An urgency surged within her, but so did an overwhelming fear of inadequacy. She felt like a juggler on the edge of a precipice, about to drop everything. Each component of her life, the job, her children, her mother, was a fragile glass bauble, and she feared the inevitable crash. As she grabbed her raincoat, the door swung open with a whoosh of wind and rain, and she stepped outside, clutching meager supplies that felt more like a burden than a lifeline. Would her efforts actually change anything, or would they simply add more weight to her already heavy heart? The rain hit her hard, but through the curtain of drops, she caught a glimpse of a silhouette, a man she barely knew, yet who seemed deeply engrossed in the scene unfolding around her. His presence, vaguely familiar yet laden with secrets, ignited an inexplicable curiosity. What was this storm going to bring? Would it drown her hopes or wash away her fears? Just as the stakes began to rise, new challenges loomed on the horizon, but Emily had no idea of the profound truth that was beginning to intertwine their fates. This storm was about to unleash more than just rain. It was primed to test her resolve and unveil unimaginable connections that could alter her life forever. Emily felt the rain drench her, each drop solidifying her resolve, yet heightening the distress within. The air was charged, not only with the storm's brewing fury, but with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. She hurried through the downpour, her heart racing not just from the chill, but also from an emerging sense of purpose. This was not just about survival. It was about embracing the chaos and transforming it into something meaningful. The man she spotted earlier began to jog in her direction, his silhouette growing clearer amidst the storm. He wore a dark coat and had a determined look in his eyes. As he approached, Emily felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She had always maintained a strict boundary between her personal and professional lives, yet there was something about his presence that stirred curiosity within her. "Need some help?" he asked, his voice amplified against the storm's roar. Emily hesitated, her instinct to accept assistance warring with her pride. "I'm okay, just trying to get these supplies to the school," she managed, her voice steady despite betraying her vulnerability. "Let me. I can carry a few of those." He extended his hand, gesturing toward the heavy bag she struggled to grip. Reluctantly she relented, watching as he took some of the load from her. It felt strangely liberating to let someone else shoulder a portion of her responsibility, even if only for a moment. "Emily," she introduced herself, unsure if she should expect anything more than a brief interaction. "And you are?" "Jordan. Just moved to town for work. Figured I'd see what the neighborhood's about," he replied, a slight smile playing on his lips. The rain continued to pour as they walked side by side, The cadence of their footsteps contrasted with the thunder in the sky, and for the first time that day, Emily felt her mind clear. She allowed herself a glimpse beyond the storm. Could it be possible that life was waiting to offer her something more, something beyond mere survival? "What do you teach?" Jordan inquired, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "Mostly middle school English. I love it, but sometimes it feels like I'm fighting a losing battle," she confessed, surprise rippling through her as the words spilled out. There was something about Jordan that made her feel safe, the storm amplifying their shared moment of connection. "Fighting a battle? Tell me more," he encouraged, his interest genuine. Emily took a breath, the weight of her reality tangible in her chest. "I'm a single mother, and my mom's health isn't great either. Balancing work with family, it's exhausting. I worry that I won't be enough for my students or for my kids." "You're already doing a lot by being there for them," he said, slowing his pace to meet her gaze. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed." The sincerity in his eyes challenged her worn-out resolve. Could someone actually see her struggle without judgment? With a renewed sense of determination burning in her chest, she pressed on, the rhythmic patter of the rain underscoring her thoughts. Emily recognized that this encounter, however fleeting, had ignited a flicker of hope within her. The storm raging overhead was merely a backdrop to the real tempest inside. She was at a crossroads, teetering on the brink of transformation. As they reached the school, she looked at Jordan, aware that their moment of connection was brief yet impactful. "Thank you for your help today. It means more than you know," she said earnestly. "Anytime," he replied, offering a reassuring smile before turning back to the rain, leaving her standing at the threshold of a daunting yet promising new chapter. As Emily entered the school building, she was left with a tantalizing realization. Amidst the storms of life, both literal and metaphorical, connections could form in the most unexpected ways, and perhaps this was only the beginning of something she had yet to uncover. What would she discover next, and how would this stranger reshape her understanding of resilience and hope? Emily stepped into the school's dimly lit hallway, the echoes of the rain still resonating in her mind. The sturdy smell of damp books and drying paint stood in stark contrast to her chaotic thoughts. She was overwhelmed, not just by the day's events, but by a deeper realization. She needed to channel the energy that had sparked within her after meeting Jordan. As she maneuvered through the halls, the weight of her responsibilities pressed heavily on her. To teach, to nurture, to support her children and her mother. It was a labyrinth of expectations that often left her breathless, but rather than retreat into her typical pattern of self-doubt, she felt an inexplicable urge to push against her boundaries, to grow beyond them. Her classroom door loomed ahead, and Emily paused. What if she reframed how she approached her lessons? What if she infused her passion for storytelling not just into her curriculum, but also into the environment she fostered? Those thoughts, previously flickering in the background of her mind, now blazed boldly. She entered her classroom, instantly met with the familiar chaos of desks thrown haphazardly together, whispers echoing among the students already settling in. Instead of letting the noise drown her, she focused inward, her heartbeat steadying as she recalled Jordan's encouraging words. She would transform this space into something more than a classroom. It would be a sanctuary for her students, a place where they felt safe to express themselves. "Okay, everyone, let's settle down," Emily called, her voice gaining strength. The classroom quieted, and she felt a slight thrill from their attention. Today she would share a little bit of herself with them, a kind of courage wrapped in vulnerability. "I want to talk about stories," she began, leaning against her desk. "Stories can transport us, teach us, and sometimes, when we least expect it, connect us with others." Their eyes widened, some curious, others skeptical. "You know those moments in life when everything feels uncertain? Well, sometimes, just like in stories, there's a twist. I'd like to hear from you about a time when that happened in your life." As students began to open up, sharing their own experiences, the ups, the downs, the twists and turns, she felt her pulse race with excitement. Their honesty mirrored her own. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of freedom in her professional space. They were not just students struggling through assignments. They were individuals, each with their own battles, much like her. With every confession, every admission of fear or hope, Emily began to realize she was not just teaching, she was healing, for herself and for her students too. Each story shared created a web of connection that transformed the way she viewed her role as an educator. But amidst the wave of warmth and enlightenment, a darker shadow flickered in her mind. Was this newfound courage simply an escape from the truth of her personal life? She could let the illusion of connection soothe her insecurities. But what would happen when reality collided with her aspirations? Would her ambition ultimately lead to soul-crushing disappointment? She pushed through her doubts, focusing on the laughter and dialogue that filled the room. Instead of bottling up her feelings, she decided to incorporate her personal experiences into their discussions, fostering a deeper bond between them all. The bell rang, jarring her back to the present as students filed out, their excitement palpable. Emily smiled, but the anxiety still gnawed at her. As she packed up her things, she checked her phone. An unfamiliar number blinked on the screen. It was a message from Jordan. "I really enjoyed our conversation earlier. Would love to chat again. Maybe over coffee?" A flutter of nerves blended with a sense of anticipation. Another connection blossoming, unexpected yet welcome. Could this be the catalyst she needed? An additional step toward reshaping her life? Emily stilled, heart thumping against her ribs as she contemplated her response. Would she take the leap into this unfamiliar territory, embracing the possibility that life offered in every connection? The moment of truth hovered above her like dark clouds heavy with rain. She stared at her phone, poised to reach out, uncertain yet resolute. What if accepting this invitation meant not just a step forward in her professional life, but an existential leap towards her own healing? Would she dare to challenge her own fears and uncertainties this time? Emily's fingers hovered over her phone screen, a battle raging within her. Accepting Jordan's invitation felt like stepping onto thin ice, each moment infused with potential warmth, yet fraught with uncertainty. The messages pinged in her mind, echoing reminders of her fraught past. Commitment, the risk of disappointment, the specter of vulnerability looming large. Her heart raced as she recalled his eyes, the way they seemed to see her, pulling away layers she had spent years carefully constructing. But it was more than that, wasn't it? It was the recognition of her own worth, a glimmer of change she couldn't ignore. After a few deep breaths, she tapped the screen, typing, "I'd love to. How about tomorrow?" The thrill of the unknown was both exhilarating and terrifying. With a mix of anticipation and apprehension, Emily put her phone in her bag, dismissing the immediate whirlwind of thoughts that threatened to drown her. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, but today she had her students to focus on. In her next class, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. The storytelling sessions were becoming transformative. She'd become not just a teacher but a guide. Her students navigated their own stories, while she stitched the narrative together with hers. Each day felt like a tapestry being woven, threads of hope, resilience, and truth intermingling in ways that were both significant and profound. As they tackled complex themes around personal journeys, her students shared moments that made her cringe, unravel, and sometimes weep. One girl spoke about moving homes frequently, always feeling like a stranger. A boy opened up about feeling invisible in his own family. Emily felt their pain, tethering her experience to theirs. How often had she worn that very cloak of invisibility? But today she turned it into a cloak of empowerment. She urged them to find their voices, likening their struggles to the heroes in the stories they admired. The classroom was now a sanctuary. They were beginning to bounce ideas off one another, crafting a space where laughter mingled with life lessons. It felt heady, intoxicating, yet beneath that joy was a growing concern gnawing at her psyche. What would happen when school ended? When she returned to her quieter world filled with remnants of her own isolation? Even as each day passed in the classroom, the prematurity of her emotional openness haunted her. Days blurred into nights as her interactions with Jordan lingered, tantalizing yet weighed with possibility. Texts morphed into calls, and calls into plans. Each exchange revealed layers of his personality, his dreams, his own struggles framed by radiant ambition. In those moments, Emily saw not just a successful man, but a person captivated by life's complexities. Was this connection real, she found herself questioning, or simply an escape from her own tangled reality? On a gloomy Wednesday evening, knowing they would meet tomorrow, she sat on the edge of her bed. Looking into the mirror, she saw her reflection staring back, almost asking, "Who are you, really?" With each interaction with Jordan, she felt parts of herself awakening that had lain dormant. Yet a new anxiety coiled within her. What if their meeting revealed more about her insecurities? She thought increasingly about her worth and readiness for something beyond her current life. As Emily sank deeper into self-reflection, her phone chimed again. A text from Jordan. "Excited for coffee tomorrow?" She smiled, yet beneath that smile, apprehension loomed larger. Was she ready to embrace this new connection, this new chapter? The question settled into her thoughts like a heavy mist. Tomorrow could bring light or dark. One conversation could shift her life in unimaginable ways. What if she took a step forward and uncovered a part of herself she had kept shrouded? The moment that awaited her was thick with unanswered potential, glistening with the prospect of discovery. Would she face the truth of herself in the warmth of another's gaze? The morning light filtered through Emily's curtains, casting warm shadows on her bedroom wall. The newfound thrill that had briefly enveloped her the night before danced just out of reach, entangled in her restless thoughts. Pushing the covers aside, she swung her feet onto the cold floor, the chill jolting her senses awake. This was it. Today was the day she would meet Jordan. It felt surreal, a culmination of a week filled with blooming possibilities and nagging doubts. As she prepared for her day, Emily assessed her reflection once more. She applied a light layer of makeup, focused on her eyes. Today, she wanted them to communicate all the vulnerability she might struggle to voice. After several outfit changes, she settled on a simple yet elegant dress. It felt right, not too formal, but enough to reflect her evolving self. Stepping into the world felt momentous, each heartbeat echoing the timing of her impending meeting. Her students waited at school, as eager as she was for the lessons, yet she felt a peculiar duality within her. On one hand, she was a confident educator, guiding her students through worlds of imagination and creativity. On the other, she was a woman on the precipice of something both thrilling and terrifying, embarking on a personal journey that had been long delayed. The day unfolded, and she threw herself into her teaching, feeding off the energy of her students. There was a profound sense of satisfaction as she questioned their perceptions on self-worth through the lens of their stories. Yet, the clock's ticking hand felt louder than ever at the back of her mind, counting down to that coffee rendezvous. With every moment lost, anticipation burgeoned, intertwining itself with nagging self-doubt. Could she allow herself to be better than she had been? When the final bell rang, Emily gathered her things, her stomach a mix of excitement and knots as she trudged through the familiar hallway toward the exit. The comforting scent of the school, worn books, chalk dust, and the faint aroma of student lunches clung to her like a refuge, contrasting sharply with the uncertainty ahead. At the cafe, she arrived early and took a seat, glancing at the door every few seconds. The air buzzed with a medley of chatter and clinking dishes, yet it felt isolated to her, like an enchanting world she could observe, but not enter fully until Jordan arrived. She pulled out her phone, debating whether to text him. Would that seem eager? What if he was late? The swarm of conflicting insecurities had returned, threatening to derail her. As minutes passed, thoughts about unworthy past relationships, flickering memories of failure, and fatigue from wanting so much yet fearing it tightened around her. She wished to be free of those burdens, to emerge unshackled and ready to embrace whatever darkness lingered in their shadows. Then she felt it, a steady pulse of determination flickering within. This meeting was not about measuring her worth against his successes, but about untangling the threads of her identity and allowing that truth to breathe. She took a deep breath, anxious, yet resolute. Jordan stepped through the door, bringing with him an aura that filled the space. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air thinned. The anxieties that coiled around her moments before began to fade, as if their connection silently oriented her strength. As he approached, a smile broke across his face, genuine and inviting. "Emily," he greeted, and in the midst of other voices, it felt personal, as if the world outside had momentarily ceased to exist. As they settled into their conversation, every shared laugh pulled Emily further from hesitation. With each story exchanged, she felt the barriers that separated her from the moments she had buried begin to dissolve. Vulnerability was still a shadow in her mind, but maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. As they shared their thoughts, it became clear that while both faced uncertainties, the authenticity they displayed began to nurture a connection. Yet the deeper they delved, the more she felt the layers of her past hovering at the edges of the discussion, waiting for their truth to be unveiled. In an aching moment of silence, she realized that each shared experience could either deepen their bond or expose her deepest fears. She took another breath, deciding then and there to chase wisdom through honesty, a notion threatening yet exhilarating. But just as she opened her mouth to reveal something significant about herself, her phone buzzed with an incoming message from an unknown number. The moment hung, suspended in time. What breakthrough or revelation awaited? What truths, still submerged, would she discover? both within herself and from this unexpected interaction. Emily's heart raced as she glanced down at her phone, the screen glowing with an unfamiliar number. The curious mix of anxiety and intrigue tightened in her chest. Who could it be? The message blinked at her insistently, a stark interruption of this fragile moment that had begun to feel transformative. "Do you remember when we used to talk about the future?" the text read. It felt like a jolt, a thread pulling her back to a time she had tried to forget. Moments of floating nostalgia clashed with the present, causing her hand to tremble slightly. She didn't want to dwell on the past, the choices she had made that led to hurt and disappointment. But was this message an opportunity for closure? Or was it another temptation to drift back into old wounds? Jordan, noticing her distraction, leaned in slightly, concern flickering across his expression. "Are you all right?" His voice snapped her back. Emily took a deep breath, wrestling with the urge to open that message and its potential flood of memories. "I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile. Jordan may have stepped in at a pivotal moment, but she still needed to confront her history. The essence of their budding connection was tainted with shadows she couldn't ignore. If they were to step forward together, she first had to confront what was anchoring her to the past. Cautiously, she tucked her phone away, feeling the weight of unresolved emotions lightening. As they continued the conversation, sharing dreams that felt far removed yet close enough to grasp, she allowed herself to explore the contours of her thoughts, trying to decipher how each nuance shaped who she was today. Jordan animatedly spoke about his own ambitions, a blend of his artistic endeavors and the residual pressure of family expectations. She realized he was navigating through a world of his own ambiguities, wrestling with the need for validation. That recognition sparked a determination within her. There was something profound in their mutual vulnerability. "What about you, Emily? What drives you?" he asked, punctuating a soft space in their conversation. "I've been thinking a lot about self-worth lately," she admitted, her stomach fluttering with unease. "Not just mine, but how we perceive our value based on others' opinions." Jordan nodded, his eyes reflecting understanding. In sharing that moment, Emily felt a new intimacy forming. "Sometimes, separating that can be the hardest thing," he said, a velvet determination tracing his words. "Yes, like for me, teaching is about encouraging kids to see their value. So why is it that I struggle to see mine?" she pressed, gaining momentum now, feeling the catharsis igniting within her. "You inspire them every day," Jordan responded, his voice steady yet tender, his words a balm. "But how often do you look in the mirror and admit the same truth to yourself?" His question hung heavy in the air, pushing against her tightly held defenses. The revelation ignited a realization. The work she did for her students was as important as the journey she needed to undertake for herself. If she couldn't embrace this truth, would she ever be ready to form a genuine connection with anyone, let alone Jordan? As they transitioned deeper into discussion, Emily recognized the paradox of their exploration. While she aimed to outpace her buried fears, the echoes of her unresolved past lingered. That message burdened her still, an illustration of how seamlessly old affiliations entwined themselves with new beginnings. Yet as minutes became a steady flow of laughter and discovery, she resolved to reclaim her story. With a newfound clarity stirring in her veins, she made a silent promise to herself. It was time to confront the ghosts of her past. Just as she was about to share one of her pivotal experiences, a sudden rush of unfamiliar energy swept over her. Another buzz from her phone. The unknown number had texted again. Emily's heart raced. Did the universe have more in store? Or was this just another thread tying her to what she sought to escape? The moment shimmered with possibilities as she glanced at Jordan, who was now watching her with a mix of curiosity and concern. Would she reveal her history and risk vulnerability, or would she heed the call of the past once more? The tension in her chest grew. The decision lingered on the precipice, waiting for her resolve to either rise or stumble. Emily's breath caught as she steadied herself, fingers lingering over the phone's screen. The weight of the moment settled in. What if this message was a chance to bring closure? No, she thought firmly. That would only feed the insecurities she was fighting against. After a moment of hesitation, she pocketed the phone, redirecting her focus back to Jordan. "I was thinking about what you said. The idea of self-worth," she said, her voice more assured now. "It's easier to champion those we care about than ourselves. There's a vulnerability in accepting your worth that feels risky," he replied, the sincerity of his gaze fueling her resolve. For a fleeting second, she saw a reflection of her own struggles in him, Yeah, it's like staring into the void and hoping it doesn't stare back, Emily mused, the metaphor unfolding in her mind. As much as she craved validation, she also feared the judgment that came with it. What if she exposed her truths only to find herself insufficient? Jordan leaned closer, as if drawing her into a cocoon of understanding. It's not just feelings, though. It's about action. You're right to inspire those kids, but how do you take that inspiration and channel it into your own life? She pondered his question. Teaching brought her a sense of purpose, a sphere where she felt undeniably competent. Why couldn't she extend that same kindness to herself? The realization sparked within her. Her self-perception had been anchored in others' validation. Maybe it's about reframing how I view myself. Instead of looking for affirmation, I should recognize that I'm worthy from the start. The conviction in her voice surprised her, as if the walls around her self-doubt were beginning to crack. Exactly, Jordan affirmed, a smile creeping onto his lips. It's an ongoing dialogue, right? We need to remind ourselves of our value, not just excel at portraying it to others. Their conversation flowed now, a rhythm of thoughts bouncing back and forth. Slowly, Emily started peeling back layers of fear, revealing insights previously held captive by her inner critic. Each revelation fortified her confidence, and she could sense a transformative energy coursing through her. As they discussed ways to cultivate resilience in the face of adversity, Emily leaned on her experiences, narrating a story that encapsulated a pivotal moment in her career. She didn't quite realize it, but with every word, her voice grew steadier. The memory of her students' faces flickered in her mind, those she dedicated herself to, and she spoke not just of their achievements, but of the realization that shaped her existence. Empowerment was a two-way street. But what happens when we stumble? Jordan interjected thoughtfully, his eyes narrowing, absorbing her every word. When the very beliefs we're trying to establish begin to be challenged? That question resonated within her, an echo of her earlier anxieties. Honestly, I think we have to permit ourselves to fail, like a lesson that isn't always tied to perfection. The words spilled out before she could hesitate to edit her thoughts. Perhaps wearing her heart on her sleeve was not such a terrifying notion. Jordan nodded as silence embraced them both. There was a gravity in the air, a moment laden with the gravity of their private revelations. Yet, the phone buzzed again, pulling Emily from the flood of newfound clarity into a whirlwind of uncertainty. The tension returned, flickering in her chest like a dormant ember igniting once more. Who was this person reaching out? And what did they want? As she glanced at Jordan, the weight of her past loomed ever closer. How much of that past would she be willing to share now, particularly when she felt herself stepping into a nascent phase of confidence and connection? How could she integrate her growth into the narrative that still felt so fragile, so poised on the edge of uncertainty? Could she truly reclaim her future without addressing the remnants of a past that tugged insistently at her heart? As they shared a quiet moment of contemplation, Emily felt on the brink of either liberation or trepidation, ready to unveil the layers of herself that had long been concealed. The choice hung delicately in the air. Emily's gaze shifted back to her phone. Should she risk looking back to understand the present fully? Or would that tether her to the emotions she yearned to transcend? The stakes had escalated, and with it, her resolve hummed in anticipation. The moment had come for her to confront not just the message, but the implications it bore on her newfound journey. Emily felt the heat of uncertainty pooling in her stomach as she stared at the glowing screen of her phone. The message lingered like a faded echo of her past, a reminder of choices she had made and paths she had walked. Muted emotions waged war within her. The urge to explore the familiar terrain of her past collided violently with her desire for a brighter, unburdened future. Jordan's presence anchored her, an embodiment of newfound perspectives challenging the churning chaos in her mind. She cleared her throat, the weight of silence heavy between them. I suppose reflecting on the past isn't inherently bad, she ventured, cautious yet emboldened. It could provide insights rather than shackles. Absolutely, he responded, his voice steady. But what insights are you willing to face? Sometimes digging too deep can lead to uncomfortable truths. The contradiction struck her. There was power in discomfort, yet fear lingered, a ghost haunting her with the promise of emotional upheaval. What if she miscalculated? What if looking back revealed parts of herself she had avoided? With a determined breath, she made a choice to dive into the shadows, choosing illumination over paralysis. I think confronting old wounds might be a necessary part of moving forward, she determined, even as the prospect sent ripples of anxiety through her. Deciding who I want to be means acknowledging who I've been. Then let's do it together, Jordan offered, his expression supportive. That support nourished her resolve. It felt like a lifeline pulling her toward a shore of clarity. What would you want to say to that version of you? Emily pondered for a beat, a haze of memories flooding her mind. I'd tell her that inadequacy is a disguise, that she deserves to own her narrative without apology. In that moment, with each word forged from her irony-laden past, she felt weight lift. This was more than an exercise in reminiscing. It was an assertion of identity. Then why not demonstrate that? Jordan leaned forward, curiosity sparking his eyes. Write your response or even just say it out loud. Own that story, Emily. The suggestion rocked her. Vulnerability was layered and intricate. It frightened her while also offering a grip of healing. But did she have the courage to unveil her truths in front of someone else? What if I sound foolish? She hesitated, but a deeper voice within her insisted. But what if you don't? The fear of sounding foolish often masks the greatest stories, Jordan replied, as if reading her thoughts. It's how we connect, reveal our shared humanity. We're all scared sometimes. And suddenly clarity surged through her. Why had she built these walls if not to protect a story? Her revelation became a kernel of resolve, pushing her to stretch beyond her comfort zone. She could write a letter, one that transcended simple words and spoke of invisible journeys, of hardships and victories. The act of creation rooted itself within her. A plan began to form. When I get home, she said, her heart racing with the thrill of potential, I will express everything I've held back, everything I've avoided. Good, Jordan smiled, eyes glinting with encouragement. Writing often brings out the best in us. Just be honest. His words felt like solid ground beneath her faltering steps. As they transitioned from tangled conversations into something more actionable, Emily felt her world transitioning too. She was becoming not just a teacher, but a student of her own life, the exciting zenith of self-discovery unfurling before her. As the minutes passed and the evening deepened around them, Emily's mind danced with the possibilities of her writing. What if laying bare her feelings brought unexpected growth? What if confronting the past guided her deeper into her evolving future? The thought of that lingering message tugged at her again, reverberating with what-ifs, and for the first time, she leaned into that tension rather than shrinking away. I'm ready for that letter, she declared, her voice thick with newfound conviction, even as another pulse of anxiety whispered beneath. Yet this time, determination quelled fear. The thrill of stepping into her authentic self sparked brightly. The next moment, Emily glanced at her phone once more, the faint glow seemingly pulsing with anticipation. What awaited her on the other side of this decision? The choice stood before her, between empowerment and hesitation. But now, instead of trembling, she felt an unwavering clarity. With a deep breath, she reached for the device, the weight of past and future coiling around her resolve. What lay in the unknown felt daunting, yet exhilarating. Would she dare step into the void, fully aware she might just find herself cradling dreams hitherto unimagined? As she unlocked the phone, the familiar rush of adrenaline kicked in, and the uncertainty crystallized, a moment to embrace or evade. The walls stood tall behind her, but now felt like mere silhouettes of her past. The clarity surged again, haunting and hauntingly beautiful. The pull toward understanding helped her inch closer to reclaiming not only her narrative, but the very essence of who she yearned to be. Yet the weight of that message lingered, an unresolved thread that awaited her reply. Who would she become through this confrontation? In that instant of anticipation, she was acutely aware. This was just the beginning of a deeper journey, as her choices beckoned her into uncharted territories. Would she be brave enough to embrace this next step? Emily returned home, the gentle hum of her surroundings a stark contrast to the turbulence within. The moment she closed the door behind her, the thrill of commitment washed over her, almost like a tidal wave, a mixture of fear, excitement, and determination swirling together, demanding her attention. Finding her way to the desk, she drew closer to the blank piece of paper that awaited her, as if beckoning her to spill her essence onto its surface. This was no ordinary letter. It was a bridge connecting her past to her future. She hesitated, the anxiety creeping back, reminding her of all the moments she had skirted around the truth, moments that had defined her, yet terrified her to unveil. A deep breath steadied her trembling hands. With the first stroke of her pen, she felt a soft nudge from within, a whisper encouraging her to keep writing, to persist beyond fear. "Dear past me," she began, her heart racing as the overpowering weight of uncertainty loomed like a shadow at the edge of the page. "You've been afraid of not being enough, but I'm here to tell you that you have always been enough." As words poured forth, they scratched the surface of emotions she had long been avoiding. A tumult of experiences, failed relationships, professional setbacks, dreams deferred, expanded like opened floodgates. With every sentence, she confronted the haunting echoes of her past as they danced delicately on the thin line between reflection and self-reprimand. You constantly compared yourself to others, witnessed their triumphs, and allowed their victories to deepen your sense of inadequacy. Each line became a cathartic release, a defiance against the impulses that held her back. With candor, she reminded herself that vulnerability was not synonymous with weakness. It brewed a new understanding, suggesting that her past did not have to dictate her present. The truth is, you should never have doubted your strength or your value. You could have embraced both failures and successes as integral parts of your journey. Yet with each empowering realization, new fears surfaced. What if nobody understood her story? The permanence of putting her feelings into words felt daunting. Now, the emotional upheaval clawed at her resolve, stifling her thundering heart with each keystroke. The moment hung heavy, prompting her to reflect. Could this letter resonate beyond her own experience? Would it reach others wrestling with similar fears? She felt an ember of hope flicker within, spurred by her earlier conversation with Jordan. What if laying bare her feelings could inspire connection rather than judgment? She thought back to his words. Sometimes it's in our shared humanity that we find solace. It pushed her to keep going. Hours slipped by as Emily forged on, compelled to unearth the narrative she had kept locked away. By the time she penned her closing remark, "I forgive you for not knowing all the answers at once. Life is not a race, it's a journey." Her fingers were stained with ink, yet her spirit felt lighter. With the final line ending the letter, she paused, taking in a slow, deep breath. There was an undeniable sense of accomplishment, a feeling she hadn't fully embraced in years. But just as quickly as the relief surged, doubt rose like a dark tide. Did she dare send this letter to herself? What if it drew her into a storm of vulnerability she wasn't ready for? As she steeled herself for the next steps, it occurred to her that the decision lay not only in the submission of the letter, but in confronting how she would share her experience with others. The idea of revealing her authentic self to her peers and students hinted at a challenge far greater than just writing. It was a moral dilemma. Should she risk deeper connections, or play it safe behind her professional facade? But with the dawn of this fresh perspective, a new urgency ignited inside her. She found herself feeling not just empowered, but eager to demonstrate the value of authenticity, a trait she had undervalued in herself for far too long. However, the flicker of fear lurked just beneath the surface. Emily shot a quick glance at her phone, the screen a reminder of the words left unspoken. There was still the lingering message from Jordan, waiting to be answered. Should she share this journey with him too, in its rawest form? The thought fluttered in her chest, warming her with excitement and trepidation. Would she be brave enough to press send on her own story and open the door to even more profound conversations? The moment of truth approached as she hovered over her phone's messaging app, contemplating the connections she might forge and the dialogue her vulnerability could inspire. Would she find the strength to reveal not just her letter, but the essence of who she was becoming? Emily awoke the next morning with the sun streaming through her window, casting warm light over her thoughts and opening the door to a new day. The act of writing her letter had shifted something within her. A paradigm that had long been imprinted with self-doubt, now softened by a touch of clarity. She felt more than just a teacher. Today, she was a woman embarking on a journey of genuine self-discovery. As a wave of confidence washed over her, she remembered the promise she made to herself, to embrace her worth without hesitation. With a renewed spirit, she needed to incorporate this awakening into her life, both in her classroom and in the world outside. She sat at her desk, reviewing her letter one last time before deciding to share it, not only with the audience waiting on the other side of her phone, but with her students as well. That day, she stood in front of her classroom, breathing deeply to steady her nerves. The chatter and energy of her students filled the air, vibrant with youthful exuberance. Emily steeled herself, acknowledging the significance of this moment, the culmination of her personal evolution. Today, we're going to delve into a different type of storytelling, she began, her heart racing. One that comes from our own experiences, our own truths. As she unfolded the themes of vulnerability and self-acceptance, she felt the collective energy shift around her, a palpable mixture of curiosity and anticipation. She shared snippets of her own journey, carefully revealing the transformation spurred by her recent internal battles. The initial trepidation she felt melted away as she witnessed the reactions of her students. Their eyes widened, engaging with her narrative as if a new level of connection was forming. What if we create a space where our voices intertwine, where we break the barriers of fear and express ourselves freely? She proposed, igniting a spark of enthusiasm in the room. Hands shot up, and stories began to pour forth. Some light, many heavy, all laced with authenticity. Emily found herself not just facilitating the dialogue, but becoming part of it, the classroom transforming into a sanctuary of shared truths. With each tale, she recognized the beacons of resilience lit within each young heart. They were mirrors of her own struggles, and together, they created a tapestry that was at once powerful and vulnerable. After that transformative class, a wave of pride surged within her. The connection she formed with her students was tangible, a bridge leading to mutual understanding. She had taken the risk of revealing her own narrative, and they had responded with honesty, a powerful affirmation of her journey towards self-acceptance. Later that evening, Emily glanced at her phone, recalling her earlier envisioning of connecting with Jordan. Her heart quickened. Would he appreciate her transformation as much as her students had? With a gentle but resolute tapping of her fingers, she composed a message, sharing not only the essence of the letter, but a sincere invitation to continue their conversation. Seconds later, the phone lit up with a response from him. "Wow, Emily, that sounds incredible. I can't wait to talk more." The simplicity of his words ignited warmth within her, proof that vulnerability could lead to beautiful connections. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt not just seen but valued. She looked back on the days of self-questioning and inadequacy and acknowledged that they had shaped her but did not define her. As she brushed her fingers over her students' stories on the classroom wall, she realized her own narrative had climbed to a place of significance, a journey marked by both struggle and triumph. Days turned into weeks, and Emily fostered an environment where students embraced their vulnerabilities. The classroom had transformed from a place of mere education into one of real empowerment. The work she regularly infused with love and passion now echoed with their collective aspirations, their shared humanity binding them tightly together. With each interaction, Emily conquered her fear of inadequacy, establishing her role not just as an educator, but as an evident leader, drawing strength from the revelations obtained through genuine connection. She felt buoyed by the recognition. Her name, once bound to limits, was now synonymous with resilience, a beacon for her students and a source of inspiration. In time, the coffee dates with Jordan blossomed into deeper engagement, conversations rich with exploration and discovery. Each meeting further defined her aspirations and dreams, illustrating how interconnected their lives were despite tumultuous beginnings. He was patient, encouraging her at every turn, affirming her newfound belief in herself, a partner in her metamorphosis, both personally and professionally. As Emily glanced in the mirror that morning, she finally saw the woman she was evolving into. She felt solid confidence flowing through her veins, evidence of the transformation she'd undergone. Each step she took, each story she shared, brought her closer to the authentic self she had always sought to reclaim. With that realization, Emily achieved more than she dreamed possible. It was the true sense of fulfillment. She could finally celebrate her worth without hesitation. She had conquered her fears, embraced her vulnerabilities, and reshaped her world one day at a time. The recognition and competence she established in both her personal and professional realms fueled an insatiable fire within her, a fire that spoke of limitless possibilities. This was not merely the end of a chapter, but the prologue to a new journey, one where she thrived, where she blossomed amid challenges with unshakable confidence and grace. Now do not wait. Even one more second. Subscribe immediately to our channel to ensure you don't miss out on these exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters more than you realize. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Together, let's spread the light of transformation.